Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself.
Today we are talking with Mitch Stewart with the Roanoke Rail Yard Dawgs. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Joshua. How you doing today?
Doing very good. Very good. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I feel kind of bad. It was so crazy there at the end of the season, and I know that you had asked me to come on, and I was like, I just needed a little more time. And now that we finally wrapped the season up, I'm happy to come on. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into hockey?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Botetourt County, went to Lower Botetourt High School, graduated there in 2016, and I had kind of always wanted to go the route of sports broadcasting, kind of whatever it ended up being. I mean, maybe not like underwater basket weaving or something like that, but went to Penn State, graduated there in 2020 with a degree in broadcast journalism, and got to call a whole lot of different sports there: football, basketball, baseball, softball, hockey. I mean, you name it. I got a chance to broadcast it. And unfortunately, my senior year was cut short by the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that kind of displaced me back home for a little bit. I was doing some serving, and that became bartending. And then I was doing a work from home marketing job for a local real estate group, and just kind of waiting for the sports to come back and waiting for them to come back up. And again, you know, I just was really passionate about a lot of different sports. So I was just ready to jump in kind of, you know, wherever the opportunity presented itself. And I was really lucky that the Roanoke job not only became available right here in my own backyard, here in my own hometown, but that they took the chance on me. And I was definitely a little rusty coming out of a year and a half or so between the last broadcast that I had and an opening night for the Rail Yard Dawgs this past fall. But that's kind of how that all came together, was, you know, just kind of biding my time, waiting for that first professional opportunity to open up, where sports in a lot of places, especially minor league sports, weren't playing throughout that pandemic season, so to speak, that 2020 into the start of 2021. So yeah, just definitely really fortunate, really happy to be where I was at this past season, and we had a heck of a run for my rookie year for sure.
That's very cool. So I know a little bit about hockey, but I don't know a whole lot. But can you tell us about the team? Because I know way back in the day, it used to be oh man, I can't think of the name of it now.
The Roanoke Express.
The team that we had prior. Yeah. That's so what would you say is different between what we had, you know, when I was a teenager versus what we have now? And you know, what makes a good hockey team, would you say?
Yeah, so I guess to start with that one, kind of going off your own experience, I didn't know a whole lot about hockey. I really got into the sport late in high school and started watching the Capitals. And then, of course, when I went up north to school in Pennsylvania, you're kind of in a hockey hotbed there. So I had to learn quick and get up to speed quick. And, you know, fortunately, I'm, you know, really into sports. So it didn't take me too long to kind of catch on and really kind of get hooked on the sport. As far as, you know, my other knowledge of it, I mean, I grew up on the Express until I was about 7 or 8, and that's when the team left. So that was kind of the reason behind maybe a little bit of my lack of knowledge, was just not having that local team here to really, you know, keep me on top of it, keep me going to games and super interested in it at a young age. The only difference really, I think, from the Express back then and the Rail Yard Dawgs now is there is just one league difference. So kind of the structure of hockey in the United States and up into Canada, as far as where it overlaps at these levels. You have the NHL, of course, which is the top league. AAA level is the AHL. So there's a team, or not anymore. There used to be a team in Norfolk It was the AHL. I think the closest one to us is probably Charlotte at this point. So that's like AAA. A lot of guys will play in the NHL and AHL during the season and bounce up and down. And then that AA level is where the Express used to be. The East Coast Hockey League it's the ECHL. So Norfolk plays in that league now. You've got like Greenville, South Carolina. So a couple teams that are up and down the East Coast, but I think they're expanding to 28 teams this year. So that league's growing. It almost has just as many teams as the NHL. And that is where the direct affiliation to the NHL stops. So NHL goes to AHL, AHL goes to ECHL, and all those players are technically connected through the parent team, that NHL team system, just like how the Salem Red Sox are connected to the Boston Red Sox from single A all the way up to the majors. The SPHL is kind of what I would probably equate it to if you're looking at like a baseball minor league, maybe a more familiar system to some other fans or sports fans. It's like high A hockey. So we had a lot of guys this year. I'd say about half our team spent some sort of time at the ECHL level. There were guys that have played here in the past that have, I think a couple of them have even gotten some AHL minutes here and there. And this year was pretty wild still with the amount of movement between all the teams because there were still a lot of COVID regulations in place where, there's an outbreak on an NHL team. They're calling 6 guys up from the AHL. Well, that creates a domino effect all the way down to us where, the AHL's got to call up their coast guys. And then the ECHL has to call up our players. So that was pretty cool to kind of see that from this perspective, how the dominoes can fall. And, even if it's not the Washington Capitals playing at the Berglund Center, it's still a really high level of hockey and it kind of is all intertwined throughout the levels. I would say what makes a good hockey team and kind of maybe what makes the sport different than a lot of other sports that I can think of is it's really not just like a star-dominated sport. It's very quick. Even if you're the best, highest-scoring forward on your team, you might play a third of the game with the way that the shift changes work and your time on the ice and everything like that. So depth really matters. Every single player on the team is just as important as the guy next to him, whether you're playing 10 or 12 minutes or whether you're one of those guys that's playing 20-plus minutes and scoring a lot of the goals. It's a really role-based sport. And, there are other sports like that, like football. If you're a left tackle, you're protecting the quarterback's blind side. If you're a receiver, you're just catching passes. And you kind of got your defined role. But hockey's so fluid where it's not that defined. Everyone's got to get back and dive to block shots and, land hits and be able to go through that physical grind of a season that the sport kind of brings to the table. So I think that's what makes a good team is you have to have a very close-knit group and you have to have everyone willing to buy into that team aspect because as much as any sport that I personally grew up playing or really maybe grew up watching a bit more often, I would say than hockey until my later years recently, I think it is much more team-driven, much more team-centric than a lot of other sports out there.
Yeah, and I kind of see that where you definitely have to work as a team, and that's always good. So as far as the season goes, I wasn't able to keep up with a lot of it, but I did see towards the middle to the end that you guys were doing really well. And then I was, of course, sad to see that you guys didn't win the championship. But, there's always next year, and you made it that far. So, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, it was really awesome for the team to have this run. There's 11 teams in the Southern Professional Hockey League, and Roanoke got the 8th and final playoff spot. That wasn't really indicative of their talent. They played one of the toughest schedules if you look back at who finished the highest in the regular season and how many times Roanoke played them versus those bottom teams that they made the playoffs ahead of. So the unfortunate thing is that their seed was a little bit lower and, maybe it was a bit more frustrating to see them lose some games during the regular season and maybe not have quite as a pristine record, but it battle tested them. And at the end of the year, they knock off the regular champions, the number 1 seed who had just set a league record for the most wins ever in a regular season. Then they swept the 2nd seeded team. and they made the President's Cup finals, the championship series, for the first time in franchise history. And again, this is only their 5th season of existence. 2016-17 was the first year, and we didn't even get to play last year. We were worried about making sure we could keep hockey here, and that was never really in doubt. But I know a lot of the fans were worried because they know how it felt when the Express left, and our ownership and our organization did such a great job of keeping that intact. And then our head coach, Dan Bremner, was awesome at making sure that a lot of the familiar faces from the prior season that was halted by COVID came back even after that long year plus away from Roanoke. And that's kind of what gave the team that core where, even if they didn't have as many regular season wins as they wanted, or even throughout the roller coaster of a year, they all banded together right at the perfect time. And if you look back at our season since we've been in the league, first year we didn't make the playoffs. The second year we did. The third year we make it into the second round, so we make it to the semis. The COVID year, there was no postseason because of the pandemic, and now we make the finals. So each year that there's been a postseason, we've made it one step farther. So if we're talking patterns here, we're kind of thinking it's our year already next year. Maybe this time around next May, we'll be talking about, a championship parade or lifting the President's Cup trophy. But yeah, it was really special to see not only the team come together, but the fans. I mean, we had a combined 8,000 people on the Monday and Tuesday that we hosted the President's Cup final games, game 3 and 4. So it was like 4,500 on a Monday night, 3,500 on a Tuesday night. Ooh. That Monday night game was more fans at game 3 in Roanoke than there were out in Peoria for games 1 and 2 of that championship series on a Thursday and Friday night combined. So one night on a Monday, we had more fans than our opponent on a Thursday and Friday night back in Illinois. And that's a team that has had hockey for just as long, if not longer, than Roanoke as far as their hockey history. I think they were celebrating their 40th year of professional hockey in Peoria, Illinois. So that just speaks to how passionate the people around Roanoke were already about hockey, as we got the season back and before the team even existed. But as the season went along and that postseason run heated up, people really got behind this team. And I think that the guys fed off of it for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you're right. It sounds like you guys are on an uptrend, getting better every year, which is what you look for. No matter what you do, but that's really amazing considering, you guys were dealing with COVID last year. Hopefully next year's the one. Now you were talking about some of the, I don't really know exactly, like the sister teams, kind of like you touched on the Salem Red Sox. Who is the team above you guys that is associated with the Rail Dogs?
So I think that was what I was talking about as far as the biggest difference between the league that the Express used to play in and the league that the Rail Yard Dawgs play in now. Those top 3 levels, so the NHL, the AHL, ECHL, they are directly affiliated. So like the Norfolk Admirals have an AHL affiliate, and that AHL affiliate is affiliated to an NHL team. We are the top minor league that does not have a direct affiliation, and that's due to a few different things. Gotcha. I think part of it is, there's only 11 teams in the Southern Professional Hockey League, and it's been growing. Roanoke, when they came into the league, I think they were the 9th team at the time. There's 2 more that have followed just in the past couple of years. So hopefully they can continue to grow the league and bring in more teams, and that will just make it more fun for the fans as far as more parity, more teams involved, more cities. And so there isn't a direct affiliation as far as Roanoke and above or below. There's another league below Roanoke, the Federal Prospects Hockey League, which there's a team in Winston-Salem, the Carolina Thunderbirds, probably the closest to Roanoke. So a lot of times, like throughout the season for us, we would – earlier in the year, if we had guys get called up, we're looking at Carolina, we're looking at those FPHL teams kind of in that low single A league. And we're trying to see who we can poach, who we can pick up to kind of bolster us up and maybe even find someone that sticks around for the long haul throughout the season. And, as far as our players, and I already talked about, we had a lot of guys get called up this year and spend significant time up in the ECHL, but they were all over the place. So we had one player who we had his rights all year, but he didn't actually debut for Roanoke this season until March because he was playing with the Utah Grizzlies out in Salt Lake City all season in the ECHL, a team that's still alive in the playoffs in the ECHL. We had a couple of guys in Norfolk, a couple of guys in Charleston with the South Carolina Stingrays. And then one or two here and there, Adirondack in New York, the Idaho Steelheads, Boise. So that's kind of the cool thing about Roanoke not being affiliated is we'll send a lot of guys a whole lot of different places. And then, when they eventually do come back down, if they do get sent back down to Roanoke, they kind of bring all these different things that they've learned from these different teams. And it kind of melting pot. I think it's kind of really unique about this league that you have that because, that's one thing with baseball. Like the Red Sox are the Red Sox unless you get traded. Like you're going to Salem and then, you're working your way up. You get to AAA, you're in Worcester, and then you're in Boston. But it's the same organizational structure all the way down where, the SPHL, whatever team that you're playing with, you could be playing with 5 or 6 other guys that have played in the ECHL the same season as you, and you're kind of all bringing different experiences to the table. So I think that's really cool. But as far as a direct sister team, that doesn't really kind of exist, although there are maybe a few teams that maybe have been more commonplace for a team or for a player to either call it up to or for maybe Roanoke to go and search for a player for to bring up.
That's very cool. So as far as the team overall, I'm not really familiar who's on the team, but do you have any star players that kind of stand out from this past season?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of guys going off of the core from, the first few years of the franchise before COVID halted the season. Travis Armstrong was the original expansion draft pick for Roanoke, the number 1 pick that Roanoke took in the 2016 expansion draft when they came into the league. And then, Jeff Jones, who has been an Ironman since he's been in Roanoke, never missed a game, which is nuts. He played 3 years here. He's never missed a game and is the all-time leading goal scorer and point man in franchise history. We had a player this year, Mac Jansen, who's been around for 3 seasons. He made the league's all-second team and had a 60-point year, which was awesome. He was, I think, 5th in the SPHL in points and top 5 or 6 in goals on the year. And then, Brant Sherwood, Josh Inall, the other 2 captains that came back. And Josh Inall is one of those heart and soul guys. He's a glue guy for the team. He's hitting everything in sight. You hear him before you see him. And he's the one that's dropping the gloves that gets the fans on their feet every now and then with some roughhousing and physicality. And Brant Sherwood's kind of a blend of all of it. He's a beloved fan favorite. He can give you some scoring here, can give you a little nastiness here. And he's got a heck of a personality. So that was kind of the old core. And then if you look at, this year, some of the newer guys, we had a player, Nick Ford, who had a natural hat trick, which is when you score 3 consecutive goals by yourself. So not just a hat trick, but a natural hat trick in less than 6 minutes during a President's Cup final game. And a lot of other rookies that came in that really made a big impact. So hopefully we can retain a few of the returning players that have been here a few years, and then also get some of the guys that maybe came into the fold just this past season or later in the season, some of the rookies coming out of college. Hopefully we can get them to come back and keep things pretty tightened up and strong heading into next year.
So when it comes down to picking a good hockey player, is there any insight you have on that?
You said as far as picking a good hockey player?
Yeah, like if you were to want to bring somebody on the team, Are there certain things that they look for?
Yeah, so I guess going back to my earlier answer, it is definitely a roles-driven sport, and even though everybody's got to do a little bit of everything, everybody's got to back check, which is getting back on defense, hustle back. You got to block shots. You gotta lay hits, protect the puck. All the simple stuff everybody's got to be able to do, but. I guess if you kind of look at our team makeup, there definitely are kind of some defined roles. There's looking kind of at the core that we brought back from before the COVID season, our 5 captains. Captain Travis Armstrong was the original dog, as people call him. He was our initial draft pick when we expanded into the SPHL and the expansion draft in 2016. And he's 6'5", and he packs a heavy hit for sure. Gets a good amount of penalties, but he's kind of the enforcer, so that's part of it. At the same time, he had a 40-point season this year, which was top 5 in the league among defensemen. So he can do it at both ends. And then we had 2 of our more prolific scorers were alternate captains. We had Jeff Jones, who never missed a single game in the 3 seasons that he's played for Roanoke so far, regular season or playoffs. He's the all-time leading goal scorer, all-time point man, and he's a goal scorer, but he's not necessarily the pretty goal scorer. He's the guy that's hanging around the net, cleaning up all the laundry that hangs out around the crease. He's gonna bang those loose pucks home and set up the offense himself. Gets a lot of assists and is just a very smart player. And kind of have more of the sharpshooter in Mac Jansen, who's the other alternate captain as far as out of those 2. High production guys from a numbers perspective. Mac was second team all league this year. He was top 5 in the league in goals and had a 60-point season, which was top 5 in the SPHL as well. So you have those 2 guys kind of fit in that role. And then you have 2 guys that I think maybe fit some of the more interesting roles on the team this year. Josh Ninadal is another alternate captain, and he's not going to maybe blow you away on the stat sheet, but you can hear him before you can see him half the time because he lands bone-crunching hits. He's the guy that's, hustling all game long, and even though he might not be getting the 5 or 6 shots on goal or the 2 goals in a game, he makes such a big impact with the literal fear that he strikes into opponents because he is probably one of the hardest hitters that I saw throughout the league this year, and he's not afraid to drop the gloves with you either and give you a pummeling if that's what the situation calls for. And then Brant Sherwood is interesting because he kind of reminds me of a bit of a blend of all 4 of those guys. He brings you that leadership, and he's got this really hilarious, magnetic personality that people are driven to. Puts up enough numbers where he comes to moments. He had a game-winning goal during Roanoke's President's Cup playoff finals series. He had the game winner in Game 3 when Roanoke won that series, but he's not afraid to get chippy with you and get mouthy with you and try to get in your head or drop the gloves if need be either. So, kind of knowing your roles and knowing how you can best contribute to the team, I think, is how you can be really a great hockey player. If you look at 2 of the guys that were new to the team this year that brought completely different things to the table but were just as important as one another. Nick Ford was in the ECHL most of the season, was playing with his pants on fire when he came back from the coast in March. He had a natural hat trick in that Game 3 win over Peoria in the finals, which is when you not only have a hat trick, but it's 3 consecutive goals. So no one for either team scored in between, and that happened in like 5 minutes and 45 seconds of game time, 11 minutes real time. He scored a hat trick in a championship game. So he kind of brings, maybe more of that kind of star power, high producing offensive talent. But then another player that brings just as much to the table is a player like Sean Leonard, who also played in the East Coast Hockey League this year for Norfolk for most of the season. But he didn't even score his first pro goal, and this now his second pro season, until the President's Cup semifinals. So a big moment for him to score. And what he's typically doing is he's blocking more shots than anyone on the ice. He is probably the most physical and the most I don't know the right way to say it without it coming off the wrong way, but he it's a controlled rage that he plays with. Josh Dinedal probably lands as many hits or more hits, but Sean is the guy who really is, taking after his teammates in those post-whistle scrums and keeping the opponents off of his guys. And, he's not afraid to take a 5-minute or a 10-minute penalty. And sometimes those don't come at the right time, but sometimes they do when they fire the team up. But it kind of shows, how everyone factors in from the physical side, from what you can bring to the table as far as maybe the points or the hits that you can land. But it's the mental side and the emotional side too, showing that you can have your guys' backs, support each other. And again, having that presence of mind to not try to outdo yourself, know what you're capable of, know what your best qualities are, and do those to the best of your abilities. And that's really what happened for Roanoke down the stretch, is everyone was fitting their role exactly the way that they should. And that's why they were able to run through the top two teams in the league. I wouldn't say with ease, but I think a lot easier than people would have anticipated for them entering into the playoffs.
Very cool. Now I'm interested in what makes a good broadcaster, because I know listening to football, things like NASCAR, basketball, everybody sounds different, but everybody's energetic. Some people have got the voice, that just, in a lack of better terms, it just sounds like it's almost robotic, sort of, in the delivery, as far as, you've got like, I can't remember the guy's name now, the famous ring announcer for boxing.
I knew
had his name and I lost it.
Yeah,
but
Bruce something. It's on the tip of my tongue.
I think his name's like Brunner or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, you got people like that just have that voice that carries, so to speak. But what do you think makes a good broadcaster?
Yeah, I think, it's a little different depending on kind of, what the game situation is and also what medium you're broadcasting through. So we have a hockey TV subscription-based service through the league where people can pay and subscribe to watch games, but not all of our fans do that. A lot of them just listen into the free radio stream. So when you are just broadcasting on TV, you have the visual aid. You don't have to fill as much of that time because people can see what's happening. They don't need you to really, spoon feed every play. You can let things kind of breathe a little bit more and let them absorb what's happening. And sometimes the best thing you can do as a broadcaster, especially when you have that visual aid, is just to be quiet. Knowing those big moments, especially in the playoff run like we just had, to just shut your mouth and let the noise around the arena, the atmosphere, be the broadcast, be the call that you're making. Radio is a whole different beast, and I try to just act like I was always on radio throughout the season because I can see how many people are listening on our radio stream. I have no clue how many are watching on hockey TV, so I always just try to make sure I'm fair to the people that are just listening and can't see it. It's a lot with hockey. They're subbing on the fly. So that is definitely a different challenge than what other sports bring to the table. You have the other end of the spectrum of baseball where you have to have a lot of personality to fill that time in between pitches or pitching changes. There's a lot of downtime. Basketball and football are kind of more in the middle where there's more of a tempo to it. Football, even with the no huddle, there's still enough time from the tackle happening to the next play with the ball being snapped to kind of have that cadence. Basketball is kind of the same way up and down. Hockey is there's not always a rhythm to it that you can learn, or maybe you're in a rhythm and then you miss a change and you have no idea who just got the puck passed to them. And so a lot of it is just trying to keep all your senses open. It's almost like you got to be seeing out of the corners of your eyes and straight forward, and you got your notes below you all at the same time. And it can be really overwhelming. It definitely was overwhelming to me to start the season when I was trying to kind of get back into the groove of things and kind of get back to what I was used to broadcasting from back in my college days. But Yeah, I always just try to, be as descriptive as possible. If someone's not able to be there, I don't want them, wondering, did that guy score, or who made that penalty, or where is the puck right now? That's always the big thing, is knowing your locators. I think that makes a good broadcaster. If, even if you can't help paint a vivid picture, you have to be able to paint some sort of image that lets fans stay informed and lets them keep up with the game, because if not, they're going to lose interest. And, no one wants that to happen, whether it's for this team or for a specific sport, whatever it is. You always want to keep whoever's listening or whoever's watching entertained. And that definitely comes out at other times. This year, I wasn't used to doing it in college. I would stay a little more buttoned up, but every now and then I maybe let a little comment or a little remark out, and maybe show a little bit of my snarky side. Or my dad would probably have a different word for it, a 2-word description for that type of comment, or that I would make from time to time. And of course, keep it professional. But I think you've just got to do your best to paint that picture. But also, if you want people to be entertained and enthusiastic, you've got to have that passion yourself. So, whether it's, making those little remarks, or whether it's letting loose on a big goal call and kind of, letting it come from your stomach instead of just out of your mouth. That's, I think, what keeps people coming back for more. And, especially at this level where, this team is still pretty new. We're in our 5th season. We're still trying to not only keep our fans that we had before we even played a game, or since we've played a game, entertained. We're trying to keep those people coming in. Those fans that maybe didn't really know a lot about the Rail Yard Dawgs until they were seeing on the news the last couple of weeks, like, this team's winning a lot of games. I haven't been to a game since the Express, or I have no idea anything about hockey, but it looks like fun. You want to try to be informative and keep them in the loop with what's happening, so that passion for them can not only be fed, but in some cases continue to grow.
Very cool. Yeah, and I can kind of see your point on being energetic, being able to looking in different places all at once and trying to keep up with it, because I know hockey is very, very, very fast-paced. Now, when it comes to the hockey season, is there a postseason and a preseason?
Yeah, so for the Rail Yard Dawgs, it's a bit tighter than it is for maybe like an NHL team. We don't have a rookie draft or something like that. We have expansion drafts when new teams come in. And every offseason at the end of the year, whether there's an expansion draft upcoming for a new team, or if there's no expansion draft, you protect players. So you protect their rights, essentially. So that means even if a player of ours from this past season plays in the ECHL to start the year next year, if for some reason he got sent back down, you want to make sure that your top guys that could play for you are protected. And that you have the first right of refusal, and you can bring them back, and no one can swoop in on you. So that's kind of priority number one in the postseason, as far as from the hockey operations side. Our head coach, Dan Bremner, is working on that list right now, probably making some phone calls to, guys that were here at the end of the season, and maybe some guys that were here earlier on in the season, or things of that nature, and trying to kind of put together that list to build from there heading into next year. And then, these guys are here for the season for the most part. A couple of them stay in the off season to, get surgeries, or, some of them, have moved here full time, and, they might have a girlfriend or something like that, or a job during the summer here that they work. But most of the guys, if they don't stay here, or they're not rehabbing, or working from home, they go back to their hometown. So whether that's British Columbia or Ontario, or it's Minnesota or Ohio, New York, really all over the place. Our goaltender was from Colorado. So a lot of players from a lot of different places. So they go home and just work a lot of different jobs. Some of them have remote jobs that they work during the season with maybe whatever they had studied previously in college, and putting that degree to use remotely if they can, if they're in that type of field. A lot of players will go and go to their hometown and host youth camps and coach during the off season. That keeps them on the ice, keeps them in shape. And it's also a cool way for them to kind of pay it forward and give back a little bit in their own areas. And they'll come back about the first week of October, and it moves quick. They start up that first week of October. It's about a week of training camp, and then you're right into the first game or first weekend of games, depending. And you go from October until if you make the playoffs, that starts in mid-April. And if you keep making it through the playoffs, as we've seen, we might not wrap up till May. And the guys, they lost out Tuesday. Most of them that aren't staying or aren't getting surgery first, at least, were home by Sunday, Monday into yesterday, Tuesday, at the time of this recording. So yeah, that off season moves really quick for the players, and then it kind of all wraps up really quickly too for us. For the front office side, of course, we're still pushing season tickets throughout the off season and trying to get people, whether it's to re-up their previous packages or maybe it's fans that have shown an interest throughout the year coming to their first couple of games on a single game ticket basis. They're working on that. I personally am a seasonal position as far as, when there's no players here and head coach Dan Bremner is trying to get some very much deserved time off. There's maybe not a whole lot for me to do currently and in my defined job description. So I'll wrap up my work here in the next week or two, and I'm going to go back to bartending at a local restaurant here. And, once September rolls around, I'll jump right back into it with all four limbs, head down, and go at it for another 7 or 8 months. And hopefully it'll be just as fun as this past season was.
Very cool. Now, I know that you can buy tickets. Can you buy the tickets at Ticketmaster?
Yeah, so the way that
I think is what it is.
Yeah, the way they're sold, it's through ETIX, which you can find the link by going to the Rail Yard Dawgs website or at the Berglund Center box office in person. That's for our single game tickets, and the other packages throughout the year, whether it's family 4-packs, which are really an awesome thing that kind of lets people get in. You save a couple bucks off of each ticket. We have group tickets for games. If you ever want to take, the coworkers out, a church group, or maybe you just have a bunch of family in. It seems like we always have a game that either falls the night before Thanksgiving or on Black Friday right after. So that's always a popular group ticket game where people they've been holed up with their in-laws for 72 hours. And they're like, gosh, let's get out and have a couple drinks and watch some hockey together and maybe, get a little breathing room from out of a packed house of relatives. But you can find those through the website exclusively, and the season tickets as well for the 2022-2023 season. We have 2 amazing account executives. Will and Andrew are their names. They're super helpful, super patient, and they'll make sure to work with you on whatever it is, whether it's on the group tickets, the individual game type stuff, or maybe you want to look at the quarter season, half season, or full season tickets. They always do a great job of taking care of people. So if you go to the website, you find their contact info, whether you want to call them, email them, whatever it is, they'll get you squared away.
Very cool. Now, I know you guys are on social media. I think I found you guys on Instagram, if I remember correctly. But are you guys on Facebook as well?
Yeah, so Twitter and Instagram, it's just at Rail Yard Dawgs. Pretty easy for that. And then for Facebook, I think it's just / Rail Yard Dawgs, or if you look it up, it's just Rail Yard Dawgs. So doesn't say Roanoke Rail Yard Dawgs in the actual official page names. That would be the only disclaimer I would say to throw out there. If you're like, well, is this Roanoke or is it someone else? I don't know if there's anyone else in the whole world named the Rail Yard Dawgs, so I don't think there's going to be too much confusion. But yeah, if you want to check us out, you can find us there on those 3 platforms, and then we're on YouTube as well. We post a lot of funny content there, as well as the in-game highlights, that sort of thing.
Very cool. I'm definitely going to have to subscribe to that.
Oh yeah.
And this will actually be up on my YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Well,
so I appreciate you taking time out, and I'm so sorry about all the technical difficulties we had. But it was great to talk with you, and hopefully I can come to a game and possibly meet you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on and for having patience with me as our season was just going 100 miles an hour at the end. And I definitely look forward to hopefully getting to meet you at a game. It's a great time, you know, and whether you're super into hockey or like everyone that takes that chance to go the first time ends up really enjoying it. I know a lot of people that I was friends with that hadn't gone to a game before I got my job. They started coming 4, 5, 6 times during the year because they would have a blast. So I hope that you're able to find the same experience, and thank you again for having me on.
Definitely. Well, we'll definitely talk to you soon. I hope you have a great night.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. You too. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.